When most people think about preserving wood, they imagine chemical treatments, modern sealants, or pressure-treated lumber designed to resist rot. Few realize that some of the most effective methods were developed over 1,000 years ago by Vikings, and they relied on understanding natural processes rather than industrial chemicals. The method they used wasn't about convenience, it was about survival. Entire fleets, buildings, and longhouses lasted decades because of it. And the failure to apply similar techniques today is why so much modern wood decays prematurely. Before we dive deeper into how this Viking method works, consider this. The lessons of timber preservation are not just historical curiosities. They intersect with survival, architecture, and sustainable living in ways that remain relevant today. If you value detailed historical insight that goes beyond what most textbooks mention, subscribe now. This channel explores the overlooked strategies and knowledge that shaped human endurance, from battlefields to home construction. The Vikings understood that wood is alive long after it's cut. The first principle the Vikings grasped was that wood is not inert. Even after felling a tree, the cellular structure continues to respond to moisture, temperature, and chemical exposure. They recognized that improper drying or storage would leave timber vulnerable to rot, insect infestation, or warping. Archaeological evidence from Scandinavian sites shows that Vikings often stored timber in ways designed to regulate humidity and airflow. Logs intended for shipbuilding were carefully stacked above ground on supports that allowed air to circulate around every piece. This prevented moisture from becoming trapped, which is the primary cause of decay in modern lumber stored directly on the soil. What sets the Viking approach apart is the attention to time and seasonal conditions. They didn't just cut wood when they needed it, they harvested according to the tree's life cycle, often in winter, when sap levels were low and the risk of fungal growth was minimized. This method, known as winter felling, is still acknowledged by contemporary forestry specialists as critical to long-lasting timber, yet few builders or homeowners apply it consciously. Salt, smoke, and, the chemical awareness of early Scandinavians played a crucial role in wood preservation. In addition to mechanical drying, Vikings actually employed primitive chemical methods to preserve wood. One of the most common was exposure to smoke or tar. Ships like the Oseberg and Gokstad longships show clear evidence of tarred planks, a practice that not only waterproofed the wood, but also slowed decay by creating a barrier against fungi and insects. The tar wasn't arbitrary, it was derived from pine and birch, whose resins contain natural antifungal and antibacterial compounds. Salt was another agent used, particularly in northern coastal communities. Timber intended for marine use was sometimes soaked or coated with brine. The high salt concentration inhibited microbial growth without the structural damage that some modern preservatives can cause. These methods were entirely organic, requiring only observation and patience, yet they produced results that far outlasted untreated timber. Why do modern techniques often fail where Vikings succeeded? Well, contemporary construction tends to prioritize speed and cost over, truly understanding the material. Wood is frequently kiln-dried to meet market specifications, then treated with chemical preservatives that may extend surface life, but fail to protect internal moisture dynamics. Builders stack wood directly on soil against walls or in damp basements, creating micro-environments ripe for rot. Even pressure-treated lumber, if poorly ventilated or exposed to water repeatedly, will succumb faster than timber prepared with traditional Viking techniques. This disconnect between modern practice and ancient wisdom, I think, really illustrates a broader pattern. Efficiency often replaces observation. The Vikings could not rely on chemical labs or industrial processes. They learned through trial and error which trees, felling times, storage methods, and coatings produced durable results. Their knowledge was empirical, honed over centuries, yet it aligns with the principles of material science we recognize today. Longhouses and longships, really served as practical laboratories for the Vikings. When we examine the construction of these longhouses and longships, it reveals the remarkable precision behind Viking timber use. Longhouses, for instance, often employed these massive beams, which were sourced from the heartwood of slow-growing trees. Now, heartwood is the dense central core of the tree, and it contains natural chemicals that help resist rot. By combining careful selection with proper storage, seasoning, and protective coatings, the Vikings managed to achieve structural longevity without any reliance on modern technology. Shipbuilding, however, was even more exacting. The curvature, thickness, and overlap of planks were all carefully calibrated to accommodate shrinkage and expansion. Before launch, ships were tarred and then maintained regularly with additional resin applications. Archaeological studies indicate that these vessels could actually endure decades of harsh weather, saltwater immersion, and repeated landings without any significant structural failure. So the lesson here is pretty clear. When you treat wood as a living material, anticipating its behavior over time, longevity is absolutely achievable. The environmental and survival lessons embedded in Viking methods really stand out, Beyond construction, Viking timber practices offer lessons for survival and environmental sustainability. In resource-scarce or extreme environments, the ability to store, protect, and repurpose wood was absolutely essential. They understood that a mismanaged stack of timber could compromise shelter, boats, and tools, directly impacting a community's ability to endure winter or respond to military threats. For modern survivalists, these lessons remain relevant. Proper wood selection, drying, and protective treatment can mean the difference between a long-lasting shelter and one that fails in rain or snow. The principle of observing and working with natural cycles rather than against them is a core insight from Viking ingenuity that translates into both emergency preparedness and sustainable forestry today. One reason Viking timber wisdom is not widely known today is that it was traditionally transmitted orally and through apprenticeship. Knowledge of felling time storage and tar application passed from master to apprentice, embedded in community practices rather than written manuals. By the time industrialization introduced uniform lumber production and chemical preservatives, much of this experiential knowledge faded. Many medieval techniques survived only in coastal shipyards or rural farming communities, often overlooked by historians more interested in battles than daily life. Applying Viking principles in modern contexts, it requires understanding the logic rather than simply copying rituals. Select dense, slow-growing wood when possible. Harvest in low-sap seasons. Allow airflow around all pieces of timber. Apply natural preservatives such as tar, resin, or brine. Monitor moisture levels and adjust storage accordingly. Even minor attention to these factors dramatically reduces decay, sometimes outperforming modern chemical treatments over decades. This approach is not about romanticizing the past. It is about leveraging empirical methods proven over centuries. Survival-minded individuals, builders, and enthusiasts who integrate these principles find that they extend both structural life and resilience in ways that conventional shortcuts simply cannot match. Remembering overlooked histories sharpens our practical understanding. Ultimately, the Viking approach to timber teaches us something broader about history. The stories we often overlook about daily survival, resource management, and applied knowledge carry insights that remain valuable today. Wood decay may seem mundane, but it reflects a larger pattern of human adaptation, observation, and preparation. By examining these overlooked techniques, we gain not only practical skills but also a deeper appreciation for how people in the past confronted the realities of their environment. For viewers committed to serious historical understanding, the takeaway is simple. Lasting solutions often lie in detailed observation and disciplined practice rather than flashy innovation. Vikings survived, thrived, and built enduring structures not because they invented chemicals, but because they understood and respected natural processes. Those lessons remain accessible to anyone willing to pay attention. If you found this exploration valuable, subscribe to the channel and share this video with others who appreciate in-depth historical analysis. By preserving and learning from these overlooked techniques, we not only honor history but also enrich our own approaches to survival, construction, and sustainability.